Okay, perfect. Okay, so should we all say our names and I guess something exciting about this week?
Okay, my name is Tara Christiansen, and I love doing home improvement projects, and this week I just figured out a plan for redoing my kitchen, and I'm going to start it over the week that we're off of school. I'm really excited.
Wait, are you in Texas, Terry?
Yes, I am.
Oh, what's those fixer-upper people? Do you know who I'm talking about? That man and wife, they have like a show on HGTV.
Oh, yeah, yes, yeah.
You need to be like them. You and your husband, be like them.
Yes, they're in Waco, and I am avid fans.
Love them. Okay.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm Heidi Pace, and there were some really good sales on President's Day weekend.
Yes. I'll go. I'm Katie Bickerstaff. Speaking of sales, I'm putting together after Valentine's Day sales for my ladies for visiting teaching. Because this month the message is the family is ordained of God. Hello, Valentine. So easy. Anyway.
I'll go. I'm Ashley Corbally, and I'm going to Disney World in a few weeks. I'm really excited.
That's awesome. Take me.
Are you going to go to Potter World too, Harry Potter, or no?
No, just Disney World. I don't want to miss too much school.
So exciting. That's super awesome.
I think Marty's frozen. I can't see her doing.
Uh-oh.
It's a good face, though. Oh, she's gone.
Oh, she's probably exiting and then going to come back. I had to do that last week. Sure.
Okay, so when you go to submit this, Tara, are you just going to be like,
I can submit it. It's not a problem. Let's talk. Who's going to do our summary? Do you guys want me to do that?
Sure.
I can do it. I have to tell you, I'm not good at writing and communicating at the same time, so I'll be a little bit slower on talking. But
you're good. That's how I was when I took notes. I'm focusing on my writing.
Is Marty back? And still no sign of Larissa. Oh, bless her heart.
no, I hope she's. Let me just check the page and make sure.
Sick last week. Hopefully they're not still sick. Everyone's just coming down with stuff.
Okay, I guess when Marty pops back on.
Okay.
I'm not going to start now. But.
Was this her first Valentine's? Your little girl?
Yeah, she got so spoiled. She had like a blanket, a teddy bear, like 3 onesie.
I love her brain squeezer. That's the cutest thing.
Brain squeezer.
Squeeze their brains. It's true.
We went yesterday to the nail salon and she got her nails done.
Oh,
it's so ridiculous.
so cute.
It's spoiled.
All right, I think we should go ahead and start.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think that sounds great. Okay, so I have a list of the questions. Okay, so it says, Dr. George will discuss many important topics. Nope, that's totally the wrong section. That's wait, hold up. Guys, I'm really sorry. I actually have this all written down. I swear I prepared. Okay. Hold up. Okay. Yeah, I think this is the right one, isn't it? Why did the government get involved in this issue? And then we all share what we research.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Do you
Thank
want to
you.
say your name and something exciting from this week?
My name and what?
Something exciting from this week.
Nothing exciting in my house has happened in weeks. My name's Marty Williams.
Awesome. Sounds good. Okay, yeah, so this is the list of things. So Dr. George will discuss many important topics. Choose one that you're personally interested in and understand, and then research the following. Does that sound right? I feel like
Yes.
Yeah.
it is. Okay. Okay. Why did the government get involved in this issue?
The one that we chose?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
I researched child abuse and how the government got involved with it. And it started at the beginning of the 19th century, and it stemmed from a nun saw a child being severely neglected and abused, but there weren't any laws at the time to help that child. So she had a friend who was an activist in the proper care of animals, who was also a lawyer. So there were laws for animals being protected from abuse, but not children. And so that's what sparked it. And at that time, it was turning from adult-centered parenting to child-centered parenting. So from there, because of the media attention and because of the public's desire for there to be change, for children to be protected, that's what started the government. And then they really got involved in the 50s and 60s with doctors saying, hey, we don't know how to treat these abused children. There's other things that are going on within the family, and so laws started to be passed. So that's why the government got involved with child abuse. It was because of the public's need for it, or desire for it.
So, I'm focused on a lot how our country is in debt and how individually we're like relying on the government more. And it's super surprising from Dr. Video. He said 49% of our country receive government benefits. 48 million people receive food stamps. I thought that was crazy. So I guess the government tried to step in and like help people who are struggling, which is good, but I think it's getting a little bit excessive and maybe to an extreme, like with 49% of people on benefits. Not that I don't think it's necessary, but I just think maybe it's being taken advantage of a little bit, but that they tried to.
Yeah, there needs to be huge reform. I agree completely with what's going on.
I found it really fascinating that he talked about how Social Security was set up in the 1930s and how Medicaid was set up in the 1960s, and yet there's been no real adjustments to them for the needs of today. And it's just shocking to me. I really didn't realize that. I didn't realize we hadn't been making adjustments, especially when he talked about when he was a child and linens were the most expensive thing in a hospital. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't. Of course the needs are different now.
Yeah. Well, he also talked about how Social Security, back then it was how many workers? Was it 1 in 35? 35 workers for every one person benefiting from Social Security. And now it's like, is it 1 in 3 or 1 in 5?
Yeah, he said by the time it's us, it'll be like 1 in 2.
Yeah, and that inspired me to talk to my dad, because my mom and dad retired 5 years ago because they turned 65, and I said, what do you think about raising the age of retirement? Would that help Social Security? And my dad's like, well, it would be a Band-Aid. It wouldn't help in the long run at all. But people need to take more proactive approach to their retirement, and just a lot of people are relying on the government to ensure that they're going to be okay when they retire, and not understanding it's detrimental to their children.
I think that's going to get more difficult going forward too, because the more taxes they take, the less the less ability we have to prepare on our own for the future.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a catch-22 there. You don't have the ability to secure a retirement on your own, so you have to rely on the government, but the reason you can't rely on the government is because there aren't enough people paying into the system.
Well, unless children are being born. So you have less workers in the workforce. I don't know if you guys have seen that video, Demographic Winter, and it talks about that. And
that was an incredible show.
Well, and he did say that it's all dependent on our immigration. We can't depend on the births that are happening in the United States. It's all dependent on how many people are immigrating into the United States in order to maintain even a level of 2 for 1 in the future. Yep. Didn't you love how he talked about how in the past we used to borrow for the future and now we're borrowing from the future? I thought that was such a good analogy of what we are doing. I guess it's not even an analogy, it's a description.
Well, he is an amazing public speaker. He didn't even stay at the podium. I loved how he was walking around. I'm like, I would have been captivated if I was in that audience.
I know. I thought it was funny too. He like kept a straight face the whole time. Like he'd be cracking people up, and he was like so in his zone.
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, he is so intelligent. Sometimes it took me a second to catch what he was saying, and when I'd have that aha moment, and he was already on to like 2 or 3 other aha moments.
I think it's just because he uses like huge words back to back.
Yes.
Yes. The baseball analogies, those are pretty cool too.
Yeah. Oh,
that's funny.
That was great.
Okay, next question. Okay, so it says, how has it been effective, and what have been the results? I feel like we kind of just covered that, though.
My topic has not been effective. I chose the death tax to research, and the whole point, they got involved with the death tax, and it actually started a really long time ago, and has gone in and out of favor, but it originally started in, let's see, 1797, and the whole reason behind it was to get rid of classism, because it was unfair for the money to stay in one family and be passed on and keep that divide, and that obviously has not worked at all. I think it punishes the people who work their way up more than it does the people who already have a ton of money.
I researched, I did affirmative action, and that it hasn't been effective. It kind of started, with the civil rights movement and things like that, but it has been effective in some cases, but I think now it's almost the opposite. It's almost giving too much to people of a different race and things like that, when if we're all equal, then why should it matter, your race or anything like that? Like, why should schools be getting more funding if they have a certain number of different races, a certain percentage and things that I just don't. I think it was needed, but I don't think it's needed on the level it is now anymore.
That's interesting. How would you transition that out of our culture? It's a really interesting topic, because like you said, it's not needed anymore. There wasn't time and a place for it, but how would you, that's a tough one.
I think that the transition will get easier just as the generations move up, because it was really a generational issue where people looked at those of a minority race and were prejudiced against them. Yeah. We don't have that same view. There are some people individually, but society at large doesn't have that same view anymore. We've gotten past, for the most part, color, or we had until the last few years, when there's been the perpetual race baiting and all of that going on from every side. But I think that the transition isn't as bad, but what it comes down to now is affirmative action. Instead of protecting minorities from people who would say, oh, well, we're not going to let you in because of your skin color, now it's saying, oh, well, we're letting you in because of your skin color, and not because of what you're capable of.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Right. Okay, so based on George Will's speech, what could the government be doing right now to help this situation more effectively? I feel like they don't really have moderation in things. Like, just with the different topics that we've talked about, like some of them are good, but it's just taken a little bit too far, or Like you said, it's not the time and place for affirmative action right now. We don't need that as much. Maybe just.
And just like how our topics were excited.
Sorry. I've got sick kids home too.
You sound sick, poor thing.
We're all sick.
Well, okay, really quick. How our topics came to be, it was because of public asking for them to be. It was public getting involved, and I think it comes back to advocacy. So in order to get the government to change this stuff, the public again needs to get involved and advocate for it. It all comes back to the voter, and all comes back to if we complain or cry loud enough that there needs to be change or reform, then it'll happen.
I like it.
Okay. Do you remember that quote that he said at the end from William Churchill when he said, the American people eventually choose the right, what was it that it was, I'm trying to think. The American people invariably do the right thing after they've exhausted all other alternatives. And I think sometimes we do have to have trial and error in order to realize this isn't going to work. Sometimes people actually have to see something fail to realize that change is needed.
Yeah. Well, our perceptions of what we feel are right compared to other people, getting us all on the same page. It comes back to trial and error.
That's true. There's a quote that I read this week. Okay, so it's from this little book.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's cute. So it has like a little miniature quote every week, and it was perfect because the one for yesterday, it says, "Through modern science, man has been permitted to fly through space at great speeds and to silently and without effort cruise 60 days under the water in nuclear power ships. In our science-oriented age, we conquer space, we cannot conquer self-control, and we forfeit peace." I just think it's funny that we've made so many advancements in some areas, but then we're discussing all these problems that you think wouldn't be that hard, but then I don't know, our country struggles with that. It's just funny how it is. Anyways, that was kind of a tangent, but
well, some of our advances stand in our way too, like how he described the documents and how thick our documents are. We are over, I don't know, maybe we're rushing into ideas and we're throwing information in order to cover ourselves or to cover all aspects that we can quickly think about, instead of being thoughtful and making laws or changes in our government that are actually precise and simple.
No, I think that's true too. Instead of getting down to the root problem, it's trying to get in other ways, whereas we're not necessarily solving the actual issue. Okay, can you guys hear me still?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So Dr. Will cites a problem no one wants to talk about with the non-consumers model. How is this issue impacting children, families, communities, and our nation? I think it affects all of them. That's how we talked about last week. A lot of times, if one thing changes, it affects all the different systems. So I think mine, it's government and having debt and things. So I think sometimes families too much, which kind of in turn hurts them. And I feel all the time I see people that are relying on the government and then they're spending money on frivolous things that they don't necessarily need. That hurts families. That teaches their kids bad examples, which then continues with the
Marty, you look so sick.
I feel awful.
Sorry. I'm not laughing at you. I just empathize.
You're really fine.
Okay. Do you want me to go to the next question? Okay. So according to Dr. Will, one thing you can do for our country is reserve a spacious portion of your life in which your country is not responsible. Reflect on what you've learned and discussed this week, and then respond to the following. Do you agree with that?
That's a good one.
I think that's gotten harder to do because we've shifted from generations ago where the government was only responsible for a few little things to the expansion of government where they're intricately involved in every aspect of our lives, and it's hard to separate ourselves because of the way that's been done. I mean, it's passed through laws and things like that. I mean, it's still important to not rely on the government as much as we possibly can. But the way it's been set up, and the government has expanded to the point where every aspect of our lives is intricately involved in political legislation.
Well, I think one way I need to really work on not letting the government involved with my life or with my family's life is how I perceive my children's education. There's a lot of parents in my children's school. They just look at our school as just a glorified daycare. They're not active. They don't volunteer. They don't take responsibility for ensuring that their children are fed in the mornings, that they have a lunch that they bring to school, or that make sure they have lunch money there, and they just leave a lot of it up to the teachers. And it really makes me sad that they let the government take so much control over their children's education and well-being. And so I really tried to step up my game, and I need to step it up more as far as being involved in their education and in the community so that the government doesn't need to. I think the more resources I volunteer and offer to the school, the less resources they're going to have to need. And I think if more parents did that, maybe that would help.
Well, and with that, your influence is in the school and not what the government deems they want the children to be learning.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, can you guys think of anything else that something that you can reserve away from the government? That's a great one, Katie.
Yeah.
I just keep thinking about how I want to ignore the government. I know that sounds funny, but I don't want to deal with issues. I just want to deal with my own little life and my own circle and my own community and the things that are happening in my own neighborhood. And sometimes in order for me to have that peace and be able to do that, that means I need to be aware of what's going on elsewhere and be educated. And I like how he said that now we are in the commodity of today is education. And I think education is what protects our space, our personal space, and our personal beliefs and our rights to raise our families the way we want. I'm really concerned about my rights as a parent being taken away. That's really scary to me.
Well, yeah. I think another way that all of us actually are doing is how we take care of our children and how we care for one another as a family. I don't know about you, but the police are not at my door every other night because of domestic situations. I think we're doing what we can there, and helping our neighbors. And I think that's a good thing. The police and the fire department and all of that should be seen as emergency response. They shouldn't be seen as taking care of family situations that we, as responsible adults, should be able to take care of on our own. There's a couple in our ward. They have a son. He keeps running away from home, and they're just at a loss of what to do. So they keep calling the police. And I just wonder if there would just be some proper parenting classes or family counseling that they could go to, that they could possibly resolve that issue and not need to involve the police so much in their life. And I don't know the whole story of the situation, but it's just a thought. So we all are doing that in some respects.
Well, and there's truth to that too, that sometimes parents get tired and they just say, I don't know what to do. And so they turn to the state or they turn to the government in order to help them. They turn to even like detentions. I have a friend that her son has, I don't even know, it's like a defiance disorder is what they call it. In other words, he won't do what he's told. And he got sent to this court-mandated camp that basically and out all day long. He was at, and then at night he came to his parents, and he came home with such a worse kid than he was that went in. Like, he learned so much stuff while he was there that really just made his life harder and made his parents' life harder. And he ended up dropping out of school in 6th grade. Like, he's no longer in school. At the end of 6th grade, he quit, and he hasn't gone back to school. And he should be a freshman now, and he isn't. So, how much better would it be if there were resources set up where we as a community took care of? We had options to parents, and it was available to parents. Like, they knew what they could do, and how before it got to the point that it escalated that police were called.
Well, look back into like the 40s and 50s. If you had a wayward kid, you sent them to Uncle Bob's farm, and you made them work the whole time. I had a cousin who lived in a small town, and he was getting into drugs and things he shouldn't. So my aunt and uncle sent him to a pineapple farm in Hawaii for the summer. Totally changed his life. I swear. He won't eat pineapple because just what happened. But the parents took control and didn't let the state determine how to help him. They took that into their own reign. So yeah, I believe there are community resources. We just need to make parents aware of them and not.
Well, and there's the truth too, as far as they need to know there's another option. A lot of times, especially with kids, they want to change, but they don't feel like there's another option, and they feel like they're constantly being judged, so they're on the defensive. But if you give them another option, if you say to them, look, you're in this bad situation, you're struggling, you can't seem to get yourself out, what if I send you here? What if I give you this? What if we try homeschooling? Whatever it is that your decision is, it's a different direction. You're redirecting them in some way, and giving them that option can be a huge blessing to kids. And you know what? As adults, we need to do that for ourselves. We need to be able to say, I need a new direction. This isn't working for me. I'm going to go this way.
Yep. I agree with that. Our resiliency, we need to step it up.
Well, that's one thing that we can each actually do. I mean, by the time we finish our degrees, we'll have gone through the practicum, which teaches us how to be family life educators.
Mm-hmm.
We can go and get that certification, and we can offer these services to people in our communities.
Yep.
Question is, in what areas do you personally feel the government should be involved and should not be involved in addressing the chosen situation? You may read that one.
So, in what ways the government should be involved, and what ways it should not be involved in addressing your threat to children and family.
Oh, okay. Well, my threat is sex education in the home. I feel like parents are leaving it too much up to the schools to teach their children and media and peers. But I don't disagree that sex education shouldn't be taught in the schools. It just should not be to the extent that it is. Does that make sense? It should be more of an optional and not a mandatory thing.
And what they're teaching in those sex education courses.
Well, and parents are not getting involved on the district level as what is being taught in the school. And then they complain that they don't like what's being taught. Well, if you're not active, then seriously, my friend, it really. And it boggles my mind that parents will not let their children get sex education in schools by a trained professional, and yet they're okay with a MyMate advisor who has no training at all teach about the law of chastity and young women's. My brain. I'm sorry.
That comes down to what's being taught as well. A trained professional teaching about sex education in the direction it's going with the Planned Parenthood plan. It doesn't matter if you're trained or not. That's not what I feel is appropriate for my children to be learning. Whereas at least the MyMate advisor has the same values I do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Don't know. I'm not sure. It's
the important to me with sex education, it really comes down to what you're teaching in the home. Because I've had a lot of conversations with my kids, and I have to say that there's been people at church who have said things that are different from what I believe. They've said opinions versus doctrine. And my kids come home and they talk to me about it, and we discuss it, and we say, well, that's that person's opinion. We know this is what the doctrine says, and this is what our family believes in the standards we've set up for ourselves. Yeah. It's not an issue. Where I have friends who it's a big issue for them because
there's no
because they haven't set up standards. They haven't had that set up standard beforehand. That we discuss these things. We already know what is expected, and I'm holding you to that.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with that.
All right. Okay. So that was the last of our questions. Does anyone else have anything to add or anything?
I just wanted to say real quick that my threat was about the devaluation, kind of the downgrading of parents, kind of what they have as themselves. They're like, oh, I'm just a mom, or I'm just a dad. They don't hold it, to the divine role that it actually is. And I think that, the government should be more involved in promoting marriage and promoting and things like that. 'Cause I feel like you almost get punished for being married now because, like, I used to be able to get Pell Grants for school, but now that I got married, that I can't. And it's kind of just like things like that when, just, I don't know, just certain things. Like my friend, parents got divorced, and she was able to get, all these grants and everything. But even though he was making a lot of money still and still paying for her school, so it just kind of stuff like that. But then I think it should be involved in promoting marriage and parenthood as a good thing.
Right. This week in our previous discussion in our discussion board, the thing that I studied was motherhood and how the government is basically anti-stay-at-home mom. And did you guys know about the new tax credit that is into effect this time? That it just got passed in December, so it's into effect now in this tax period. And how if you are a working mom, you get a larger tax credit if your kids are in daycare.
Oh, to pay for it?
Yeah. So the average parent gets $1,200 or up to $1,020 of child tax credit to claim on their taxes. But if you are a working mom and your kids are in daycare, you get $3,000. But if you're a stay-at-home mom and and this all depends on how much money you make a year. I mean, if you make over $120,000 a year, it doesn't count. But if you are a stay-at-home mom with making less money, you don't get any additional support. But if you are a working mom making more money, you're getting a higher tax credit.
That's ridiculous. That's crazy.
And it was passed.
Have anything to do with like single mothers? Are they trying to help single mothers, or is it regardless if you're married or not?
President Obama said that he thinks it's unfair that women are leaving the workforce and are coming back making less money because they were forced to leave the workforce. And this is a way to help them in the process of being able to stay in the workforce so they don't have to accept a lesser income.
Oh my God.
It was totally saying that women who choose to stay home are not of value as much as women who stay in the workforce. And that a woman, it's back to the whole, it's repressive for women to be home. Like it's an abuse of women to have to stay home and take care of their kids. And if we give them help and assistance, they'll stay in the workforce, helping the economy, and it will be better for women and their self-worth, and it will be less repressive to women. It's totally what it's based on. So
it goes even beyond devaluing stay-at-home moms. The UN is trying to encourage universal child care so that women have to go to work. They don't want people choosing to stay home. They're trying to take mothers away from their children. They want all women working.
Totally said that. The quotes that I had from him were just amazing. I couldn't believe he actually said some of the stuff he said. And that it got passed. It was approved. So, yeah, oh well. But that is what happens, is people hear things and they think, oh, help mothers? That's a wonderful thing. Giving a tax credit to moms? That sounds great. But it's what's to be educated and understand what's going on. And thank goodness there's people that are willing to educate us. There's organizations that are looking at these things and finding out this information and are passing it on to us. What a blessing that is. I actually really just appreciate that about this class, is how many organizations I'm learning about that I can follow and stay informed in what's going on.
Yeah.
You have similar values to me.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do the summary, unless you guys have something else you want to add. Okay, let's see how I do here. Our government-involved issues were based on child abuse, the death tax, affirmative action, and the devaluation of parents. And we felt that the government helps, oh god, let's see if I can even, it's hard because I just read them all together. The government now versus the 1930s and the 1960s needs to be able to make changes and needs to be able to stay up with what it has done. And that we considered that the Social Security age, if it was raised to 74 like he suggested, that it would be more difficult to prepare for the future, and that retirement may not be enough even, or raising the retirement age may not even be enough to help to balance these government organizations. And we talked about how the past borrows from, or in the past they used to borrow from the future, and now they borrow, or they borrow for the future, and now they borrow from the future, and how our viewpoint needs to change in order for us to be able to best serve the people of the future of our children. The death tax was in 1797, and it is not effective. It was set up to help get rid of classism and punish people, but it really is just punishing people who are trying to work their way up. Affirmative action is also not effective. It was once needed, but actually now we are more likely to accept people of different races, and so we need to have some kind of transition plan in order to help people to transition out of that. In other words, we're putting prejudices in place that are new prejudices. The government needs to simplify what it's doing. It needs to change some things that have been failing, and it needs to find ways to protect the family and to enable the family to make the changes that they need to do. The problems that no one wants to talk about are, okay, things that are reserved from the government. We want the government to preserve our education, but we also want parents to be active volunteers, teachers to not have full responsibility. Parents need to make sure their kids are well fed and are getting the care that they need, that they're being helped with their homework, and that the education of our children is not completely left up to the school system. Okay. How we care for our children matters, and in continuing our own education, then we are helping prepare for the future of our families. In the 1950s, people would send troubled kids to farms, and this was in order to redirect them and to teach them how to work and to teach them to have less selflessness. We need to be able to redirect our own kids today, and we need to be able to redirect ourselves if we are heading in a direction that is not right. and be okay with also redirecting our communities and being an advocate for what we believe is right. The government should be involved, we said, in some things. One thing we mentioned was sex education should be taught, but it should always be optional. And the same values need to be set up in the home, and values need to be set up in the home so that kids know what the standards are and family standards are accepted. And then just lastly, that the government should be more involved in supporting marriage, and we need to make sure that the devaluation of parents is not happening. Okay, does that sound good?
Perfect. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast.